Hey, in this video, I will tell you what is yield farming in the field of crypto. Yield farming has quickly become one of the more popular methods of how people earn a passive income with their crypto. The concept itself is still a mystery to many, however. Getting into yield farming can seem intimidating and confusing. That's why I'll strip the topic of any and all confusion and tell you everything you need to know about yield farming. First though, I'd like to welcome you to Crypto Finally Explained, the most crypto-friendly educational YouTube channel for actually learning crypto. Here, I finally explain crypto topics using simple animations, visual doodles, and real-life examples. In this video, we're analyzing yield farming. I'll tell you what yield farming is, how it works, and how you can start farming cryptocurrency yield as well. Let's get to it. So then, what is yield farming? Well, the term consists of two words, so let's break them down, shall we? Yield refers to passive rewards that you'd receive for participating in some sort of a process. The rewards are passive since you don't need to actively participate in said processes all the time. In this context, farming simply means continuous acquisition. So, yield farming is simply a method of receiving passive profits in the form of some assets in a recurring manner. In principle, that's pretty simple. When it comes to crypto, yield farming isn't all that different. You invest some cryptocurrency into a project and then start receiving passive periodic gains. In other words, it's a way to make a passive income. Well, invest isn't necessarily the right term to use here, really. Rather, you lock your crypto for some period of time. Allow me to illustrate with an example. Imagine that you have a bag of 10 candies. One day, your friend comes up to you and makes you an offer. If you give him the bag for a week, he'll bring you back 12 candies. Now, your friend will use the candies in your bag in order to trade them with other people. However, by the end of the week, no matter what happens, you will still get 12 candies back. Do you really care that your friend will use the candies throughout the week? Does that matter at all? Not really. All that matters is that you'll get all of your candies back and more. This is essentially how yield farming works in crypto, too. Naturally, though, there are different types of yield farming that you could participate in. So let's check each of these types out and try to figure out which is the most worthwhile, shall we? The very first form of yield farming that you'll likely come across is cryptocurrency lending and borrowing. This concept has become very popular in the last year or two. There are multiple decentralized finance projects that allow crypto fans to both borrow cryptocurrencies as well as lend them. Platforms such as Aave are a great example of this. The most common way to participate in yield farming with such projects is to lend your crypto. Let's say you have one Bitcoin and aren't planning on selling or trading it anytime soon. You would go to a platform such as Aave and lend that Bitcoin to someone else. Don't worry, since this entire process is automated and happens via special pools. There are minimal risks involved. If you're not familiar with liquidity pools though, I highly encourage you to watch my video on the topic in order to get a better understanding of the concept. Now, depending on a few different factors, you could expect to receive an APR, or annual percentage rate, of up to and over 34%. In other words, in a year, you would end up with 0.34 BTC more. That's a huge number. To put it into context, with traditional banking institutions, your APR won't really go over 1%. Well, you can probably see why crypto yield farming is as hot of a topic as it is. Another awesome feature of cryptocurrency lending is that, in most cases, you're able to withdraw your money at any point in time. So if you do end up needing that one Bitcoin, you can just take it out with no strings attached. Next up, borrowing. This one's a bit tricky, I'll admit, since it's one of the more unique forms of yield farming. Imagine that you have a very old and valuable painting. You love that painting and spend a lot of time admiring it, and thus don't really want to sell it. However, you're in a bit of a pickle. You really need some money. What you could do is borrow money while placing your painting as collateral for the loan. Once you pay the loan, plus interest back, you will get your painting back too. Now, since the painting is so old and valuable, its price on the market will increase during that period of the loan. This is the general view of how yield farming works when you borrow cryptocurrencies. If you believe that Bitcoin is an awesome crypto and it will rise in price, you could use it as collateral for your loan. Then you would have some money to work with while also having BTC locked in as collateral, with the hopes that once you repay your loan, that Bitcoin will be worth more than when you initially had it. Now, there is one more awesome method of how you could participate in yield farming while borrowing and lending your cryptocurrencies. However, it's a bit more complex, so I'll leave it for the end of the video as a bonus. Make sure to watch till the end. Moving on, the second big form of yield farming is becoming a liquidity provider. It sounds fancy, but the core idea behind it is very simple. In order to understand it as best as possible, however, you should really go and watch that video on liquidity pools that I've mentioned earlier. Liquidity providers are people that provide their money to decentralized cryptocurrency exchanges and receive passive returns for doing so. Let's say that you have $1,000 lying around and want to make it work for you, so to speak. Well, to start off, you would first convert that money into two cryptocurrencies. Let's say Ethereum and Aave. Then you would take your ETH and Aave and provide it to a decentralized exchange, such as Uniswap. People would then use your Ethereum and Aave in order to swap from one cryptocurrency to another. Each of these swaps have fees. Now, the fees are collected by Uniswap and distributed to the liquidity providers as payment for their liquidity. A very simple yet super effective model. Your actual passive gains will depend on a few different factors. First of all, the amount that you provide as liquidity and how many other liquidity providers are in the same pool. If the ETH Aave pool is huge, and there are thousands of others providing liquidity, you'll probably get a smaller return. However, if you provide the pool with a hefty sum of tokens, your returns will be much bigger as well. One more thing to look out for are the fees that the decentralized exchange imposes. Depending on the fees, your reward will vary as well. To this day, however, Uniswap remains the most popular decentralized exchange when it comes to providing liquidity and earning passive interest. Continuing on with the video, the third method of how you can participate in yield farming is one that's familiar to many cryptocurrency enthusiasts: staking. At first glance, staking can appear much the same as providing liquidity. You have some crypto coins or tokens and provide them to a specific platform in order to earn passive returns. I have to admit, going into the topic in depth, things aren't that simple. Do check out my videos on staking as well as the differences between coins and tokens if you'd like to learn more. For the sake of keeping this video about yield farming though, let's just say that staking is when you lock up your tokens in the network in order for them to confirm other people's transactions. Only specific coins can be staked though, those that are built on the proof of stake consensus model. The simplest example of staking would be that of the Cardano project and its native coin called ADA. You can purchase ADA on most of the top-rated cryptocurrency exchanges on the market, such as Binance or Coinbase. After you have your ADA coins, you would then need to find a staking pool. The simplest way to do this is to transfer your ADA into the Yoroi wallet. It's a browser extension-based wallet and is the most popular place where people store and keep their ADA coins. Also, Yoroi has multiple pools available to be accessed from within the wallet. All that you need to do is choose the pool that you want and delegate your ADA coins into it. As time goes on, your coins will start earning passive returns for you. Admittedly, this is a topic that deserves a separate video in of its own. If you'd like me to go over how to acquire and stake your ADA coins, do leave a comment below the video and subscribe to the channel. I might create a dedicated video about it. Another way how you can stake coins and thus farm yield is on cryptocurrency exchanges themselves. Some of the most popular exchange platforms are beginning to offer their users staking functionality. You could purchase coins and then simply stake them from within your exchange-based cryptocurrency wallet. There's usually just one button to press and that's it. In most cases, your yield rewards will be the same tokens that you stake, or the so-called LP tokens, otherwise known as liquidity provider tokens. You will then be able to trade these LP tokens for another cryptocurrency, such as Ethereum. The last big method of how you can participate in yield farming is by holding cryptocurrencies that have redistribution fees. Sounds fancy? Well, it's super simple, really. Some cryptocurrencies have what are called redistribution fees. This means that whenever you trade this crypto, a part of the fees that you pay for the trade will be distributed to other holders of this cryptocurrency. Probably the best known example of this would be SafeMoon. This is a very popular cryptocurrency that has redistribution fees, as well as token burning mechanics. Token burning sounds pretty fancy, but it really is simple. As you transact with a cryptocurrency, you pay certain fees for your transactions in the form of those same tokens. So let's say if you want to send 10 SafeMoon to your friend, that will cost you one SafeMoon token as a transaction fee. Some of those fees will be redistributed to token holders. Say they would share 0.5 of a SafeMoon token. The other 0.5 of the SafeMoon token would be sent to an inactive, inaccessible wallet. This is what is called token burning. Tokens in this wallet would be lost forever. This way, the token battles inflation and still rewards holders. Now, obviously, there are various technicalities to be aware of when it comes to this type of yield farming. The token may swing price heavily, and you would need to have a lot of tokens in order to receive any notable yield gains. So, with the 4 big main yield farming methods out of the way, I'd also like to tell you about a bonus method. It's called leveraged lending. I left it as a bonus because it's a bit trickier than the other yield farming tactics we've discussed in this video. Imagine that you have $100 in ETH. You decide to lend the ETH and borrow some Dogecoins by putting your ETH up as collateral. Since your collateral will always need to be bigger than your loan, you will receive $70 worth of Dogecoin in return. Now, what you need to do is go to a cryptocurrency exchange and trade in your Dogecoins for Ethereum. You now have ETH again. So, you take it back to the lending platform, put in your new ETH coins and borrow some more Dogecoin, and repeat the process. Since your collateral will always be higher than your loan, this does have an endpoint. However, by the end, you'll have much more ETH in the lending platform than you did at the beginning. This isn't a very simple process to set up, since it requires knowledge of APRs, different lending and borrowing platforms, and great timing. Also, the prices of cryptocurrencies these days are rather volatile, and you might end up liquidating your positions if the price of ETH drops too much. However, with a bit of practice, this can be a pretty interesting yield farming strategy. So, to conclude the video, I'd like to say that when it comes to yield farming, there are multiple methods that you could employ with varying degrees of risk and reward. In short though, you should focus on the top-rated projects and cryptocurrencies that have historically shown signs of resistance against large price swings and general market volatility. With that being said, thanks so much for watching my video on yield farming. I hope that you've enjoyed it and that you've learned a lot. Also, I do hope to see you in my next video.